Alright, this is a version of my Pikachu. This isn't the King version, but I went and looked at the version you did, and of course it has the crown and the scepter right here, okay? So I decided to go ahead maybe later and print the crown separately, you know, by itself, and the scepter as well, and then glue them in place, just a small amount of super glue, and then put the crown on and the scepter in his hand. But I wanted to kind of show a little bit about how I did my version, and I didn't want to have to be forced to use any supports at all. So in order for me to not have to use supports, I mean literally no supports, because kind of technically it's pretty close to being able to be printed without supports. The only issue that I found was the tail, and I was going to print the tail separately, but then I thought, well, I'll go ahead and just change the model. So what I did, and I don't know if you can see this, is I printed the body in two parts. Right about the waist height, right through here. I don't know, again, if you can kind of see that line right there. Is I cut the bottom, the bottom of the print off, and then printed the Pikachu at an angle. So I cut it at an angle purposely so that the body would lean forward a little bit, which then would bring the tail more straighter, okay, not so much at an angle, okay. So when I did that, I tilted the body forward. This would actually change the angle of the tail. So it would actually, instead of being leaning back, it actually leaned more forward, making the upward angles more level, okay. So it tilted it forward, bringing the tail portion right here more level with the bed, okay. So instead of tilted back, it was level with the bed, or with the nozzle. So since it prints the tail starting down here, then there is filament to land on. It actually has filament to crawl up on. I mean, it has a layer below it as it's going up. So there's no issue with any of the tail hanging out in midair. Okay, so as it prints, it has filament below it and keeps building up and up and up. So there's always filament printed below each layer so that it actually holds on to itself. Okay, so again, there's nothing about this. It wasn't angled like critically in one direction, and the nozzle didn't know it, of course, and then printed in midair. It actually was landing on itself as it printed up. So that means there was no supports needed for the tail either. So nothing needed to be supported in the tail at all, okay? I was a little concerned that when I tilted it forward, that there might be an issue with the nose, okay? Because by leaning it forward, it changed the nose also slightly forward. Let me see something here. So what I did, yeah, okay, I need to clean just a little nub off that was right here. Let me see if I can find that. So what I did is I created what I call T supports, not tree supports. I developed and created T supports, and they are literally golf tees being used as support. So what I did is, while the body was leaning forward on the bed, I added two, or at least for sure one, but at least two, right here in front, going up to his nose. So there are two T's going up to just below his nose, and that gave the filament something to land on while it was printing just the tip of his nose. So as far as the bottom, the legs, the ass end here, it was again printed flat. But I noticed in the model that the bottom wasn't flat. In the STL file, the bottom portion is not flat. It actually curves inward slightly, which causes the filament to print around the outer edge first, and then have to go in and print the indentation here for the bottom. So I wanted to create a much more solid bottom all the way across. And as you can see, no raft or brim was needed, no supports. It still prints great. So basically what I ended up doing is cutting the lower portion of the body off of the ass end there. Okay, so it was literally now straight. You can kind of see there it's straight across. There's no curvature going up. And by removing this part that printed first to be more even with the curvature part, the inward curve, then it made it more flat and stable, and no raft was needed. I can see in your model, which again, it worked, but you can see the remnants of the raft all the way around, which can be sanded off. Again, this is a hobby, so you can sand it off. But again, I didn't want to deal with any of that. So this is what I came up with, is removing the bottom of the body just slightly. And again, I can round out the heel a little bit. I mean, the heel's flat anyway, but you can take a little sandpaper and round it out a little bit or whatever. Again, it's a hobby, so there's going to be a certain amount of work, okay? It's not a do-all printer. The 3D printing is not do-all, do everything. It gets you close, and then you can use a little bit of sandpaper to do the rest. So what I'm going to do is print the crown and the scepter separately and then glue them in place. So there you go. Just thought I'd show you a little bit about what I did, but no supports were really needed at all. Nothing major, just a couple little T-supports right here for the nose. The arm didn't need it, you know, because it's angled in the upward direction there. It didn't need it. This arm, of course, didn't need it. None of the rest of it needed any support. And then again, it was printed with the body slightly curved forward because I cut it off. And again, I don't think you could really see the rejoining. You can a little bit here, but you know, that's what paint's for, right there. You can see the joining right there. I might have not had enough pressure to push it down, but it's basically just a color change. It's not really a gap. It's just a color change. So anyway, there it is. Just wanted to show that there are other ways to print stuff like this. You do have to do a little bit of modeling changes in the STL file, but doing those changes will improve the fact you don't need to use supports. Okay, because supports have to be removed, and they tend to leave little telltale signs. All right, happy printing.